Hey, Warwick.
Hey, Nicole, I left a gap just in case you wanted to go first.
You allowed me to go first. I feel really privileged. All right, are you ready?
Yes, no, yes. Hang on, I'm not sure. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. What do computers eat for a snack?
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm not sure.
Little tiny microchips.
Hello, listeners. That was actually pretty good. I was thinking bites or bite-sized things, the bits and bytes and the kilo. Anyway, good thing this is a podcast about tradies in business and how to do better at your trade business, because if it was a podcast for how to be funny, I think we'd probably not have very many listeners.
So once again, you're coming in with the sledge, even after our poll in our group that very heavily weighted towards the inclusion of the mum joke.
Well, you could take that as a sledge, but I think it's mainly because my jokes are shit. So welcome to another week, another episode, gang. We have another fantastic guest that we're chatting with today, who is sitting here wondering what the hell he's got himself in for with this interview. It's like, I thought this was actually going to be a really professional podcast, and these two clowns clearly have no idea what they're doing. Michael Nuciforo from Thriday, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thanks for having me, and love that little interlude.
Well, see, I listen to a few podcasts, not many because they generally get in my head, and I get so sick of hearing the 6-minute pitch fest at the start of every podcast with use the code WASISALEGEND10 to get 10% off your first purchase of socks from sock.com or whatever the heck it is. And these socks are so great and I wear them everywhere. And my wife loves my socks. Like, oh my gosh, dude, get on with the content.
Well, funny you mentioned that, because I saw a friend on LinkedIn post the other day. I just want to find a podcast where the guest talks, not
Okay, I'm going to keep that in mind for today.
Yeah, not for today. Okay.
Right, so take it away, Michael. No, I'm only kidding. Michael, we are going to obviously talk about Thriday and the problem that solves for trade business owners, I guess, or problems. But before we do, our listeners tell us they love to learn about the people that we have on the show. I guess a bit about what you're saying. They'd love to hear from the guests, not the hosts. So tell us a bit about Michael and how did you end up being a slave while your wife's on holidays?
Good question. I guess father of two little ones. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Nice.
Which can make it quite challenging when you're running your own business. I guess by way of sort of my first starting point in my career was actually in banking. I joined ANZ Bank out of university, and I quickly realised that I really enjoyed building sort of products and services that end users would use. Often in the bank, you might be dealing with internal groups or regulators and things like that. I loved working on the product side of things. Mm-hmm. So I quickly found myself in sort of digital online banking, and spent about 4 years at ANZ, and then I headed over to the UK for 5 years. I did the old London sojourn and had a lot of fun in London. It's where I met my wife, and we ended up getting married. And London was great because I really saw how banking was evolving, and at that stage, mobile banking and the iPhone was all the rage. And I guess that sort of brought me full circle into thinking about actually what became the concept of Thriday. So when I was in the bank, I saw a lot of this great data that sits in bankland around, obviously the activity of a business, income, expenses, credit, etc. But it just felt like it was really underutilized. Mm-hmm. And, that sort of got me thinking about how you could sort of integrate banking with accounting and tax to help small businesses. I guess growing up, I'd always been interested in business. A lot of my family were business owners themselves. So I'd sort of been in and around those kitchen conversations between, my uncle and his wife about, his trades business. And then, I had another uncle that ran a restaurant. So, for me, hearing the conversations about business and money and staff was just sort of part of the vernacular that I heard as a child. Mm-hmm. So for me, even though I entered that sort of corporate career, it was only sort of a matter of time before I decided to sort of pursue my own thing. And I knew it was always something I wanted to do. And a few years ago, I made that jump.
Cool. And so, Michael, you started Thriday from scratch on your own?
Yeah, so it was a long story. So when I was in the bank, it was sort of 2015, 16, and I was working at a large UK bank called Lloyd's.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I could see there was a huge amount of small businesses using our online banking and logging in very frequently, so in excess of 20 times a month. And what became really interesting was we were speaking to Apple and Google and those platforms about launching sort of mobile banking services. And they said, did you know that people use online and mobile banking just as much as they log into Facebook and social platforms?
Mm.
And that sort of really stuck with me because, it makes sense. People need to know exactly where they stand financially. Often businesses are going from, invoice to invoice in terms of how they operate. And they're regularly checking in. And I thought, wow, there's so much data that sits in the bank that really isn't used at all to help people manage their money better. So that was sort of the first sort of light bulb. The second light bulb I had was before Thriday, I actually ran another business called Parkhound. Parkhound was a car parking app where you could lease parking spaces from other property owners, a little bit like Airbnb.
Yeah, cool.
I co-founded that business. We ran that business for about 4.5 years, and we found it hugely frustrating to do all the financial admin. And this is not uncommon. I think every business has this issue. Like, we started the business thinking, okay, this is a great startup idea. We want to go and get customers. We want to go and find parking spaces. We want to, make the world better in terms of offering cheaper, easier access to parking. And we found ourselves spending 5-6 hours a week on all the admin. We had various suppliers, we had staff, we had to invoice and follow up and all of these different things. And that was my first exposure to running a business. So I assumed, coming from another corporate, that all of this would be easier. And not to be disparaging of any other products in the market, but they often talk about having very seamless, easy to use capability, right, to do your accounting and tax and things like that. And my first-hand experience with those products, where they were almost built in the 90s and were very difficult to use and set up. So that was the second light bulb, running my own business. And I thought, wow, if this is the best products in the market and these are billion-dollar companies, there's got to be something better that we can do. And taking my banking experience and applying it to this area was really interesting, because I don't think anyone had ever thought. It might seem quite logical to your listeners when I explain it, but we thought, well, why doesn't someone pull banking, accounting, tax, invoicing, payroll, receipts into just one system?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are they all separate systems or apps and things that you have to plug together and integrate? And that really kicked off the idea for Thriday. Now, Thriday was interesting because it was a pre-COVID idea. And, really 4 or 5 months into commencing Thriday, and by commencing, I mean, my co-founder Ben and I were just doing a lot of research, interviewing businesses, understanding their challenges with their money. That's when COVID hit. So it was a difficult time to start. We worked through that period, and, I guess we're here today to live another day.
Mm.
Awesome.
Michael, that kind of leads into one of my questions. Was, given your experience, your background, particularly, I guess, up until you opened your own business with the parking app, how did you figure out what the problems were that you needed to solve with the software?
Super interesting, because with the bank, you have a lot of resources that you can use. And we had various agencies that were running research for us with different small businesses. Interesting anecdote to that is, as a startup, you do it all yourself, but as a big business, you're typically one step removed. You get people to speak to your customers.
Yes.
But we had all this great research coming in, but no one wanted to act on it.
Mm.
and that actually became a frustration. And I think often startups are founded by people that have an itch that they can't quite scratch at the corporate they're with. And that was very much me. So I was presenting, opportunities and business cases, but the organizations I was at were very retail focused. Mm-hmm. And by and large, and this still holds true today, business, the big banks typically really only care about home loans and credit cards and things like that, So it was very difficult to convince people to invest, even though the opportunity was massive. And I tell people that, I've looked across the world, and 30 to 40% of bank incomes come from small to medium businesses, but it's still a very overlooked part of how they run things.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's quite overlooked everywhere, and specifically the trades. We talk frequently about the negative narrative around trades. And some of it's founded, don't get me wrong. I don't want to paint a glossy picture. Let's paint a real one. Yep, sometimes they let themselves down when it comes to client communication and setting expectations and taking care of this stuff even that we're talking about today. But I feel like, the sector as a whole, the small to medium enterprises are largely ignored by all of the big organizations, or many of the big organizations, which again leads me to a question for you as a startup yourself. I guess setting up a business, starting up this kind of business particularly, can be quite expensive. How did you go about finding, I presume you had some investors. Maybe you can talk us through part of your journey.
Yeah, fantastic. So you're right. So with Parkhound, it was actually a bootstrapped business. And that business lended itself to that. We weren't the owners of the parking spaces. We were simply a broker, I guess, between, buyer and seller. So we're able to build that business organically over time. And then we were acquired at the end of 2017. So this business was the complete opposite. There's no way you can build such a comprehensive offering without raising money. And there's a lot of regulatory, legal implications. And, even our legal budget is more than I probably spent on Parkhound, in a year. So you're right. So what we did was we had a really interesting idea. We, from the very start of Thriday, we were speaking to tradies, we were speaking to taxi drivers, hairdressers, everyone. And organically over time, we were actually able to convert those people into sort of hanger-ons, if that makes sense. So they would do some, we would get introduced to someone, we would do some research, a survey or a face-to-face interview. And then off the back of that, we would keep their details, and, they might ask us questions or send us something that they saw, or, another idea they had. And we actually started to build a little bit of a community. And we then decided to do monthly updates to them through an email. And again, it's just kept growing. And, we had sort of 300 or 400 initially, and then we ended up having 1,000, people sort of in our network supporting us, giving us feedback, testing our product and things like that. We decided that, community was such a big part of what Thriday was, and that small businesses inherently are, community driven. A lot of people, love the community they're in. They're part of the fabric of their community, and they interact with other small business owners. So we thought, competing with the big guys in this space was going to be challenging, because of the marketing and the brand awareness they had, that we needed to almost build it from the ground up, community action. And the reason I mentioned that was because that actually then got us thinking about doing crowdfunding.
Wow. So
if you're not familiar with crowdfunding, it's basically where you can take investment from ordinary punters under certain guidelines and protections. And we decided to do crowdfunding through Virtual, which is Australia's sort of biggest crowdfunding platform. And through that process, we actually raised $3 million, which was frankly incredible and beyond my wildest dreams. And I think it just showed how much people resonated with the idea, and also how many business owners are looking for something else out there. We had 500 people invest. Of those, about 400 were business owners.
Wow.
It was incredible. So they got skin in the game.
Yep.
Very motivating for us.
Yeah.
But we also have an active audience that is, lives and breathes the product with us. So we never feel alone with Thriday. We're not sort of trotting our own path, we have a group of people that are right behind us.
That's so cool. That would be incredibly motivating, thinking about the people that have put their skin in the game, to use your words. That's a big step and a testament to the potential they saw in the product, for them to put their hand up and say, yep, I'm going to financially back this idea.
Yeah.
Correct. It's a bit scary.
Yeah.
It's a lot of responsibility, I guess.
Correct. But I love it. I thrive on it. And, to your point, I think they're all genuinely want the best. They understand that there's a risk with any business.
Yeah.
So it's good pressure. And, to your point, we have a lot of them refer other customers or clients or suppliers of theirs. So it's been really, really helpful for us in terms of our early growth.
It's a good way to create a motivated sales team is, they have a vested interest in the business and its success. So, of course, they're going to go around and tell others about it so they get a return on their investment.
Absolutely. And genuinely, a lot of them are like family now. Some of them, they come to our team events and, we'll go get a coffee with them, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic. And they're honest. They tell me how it is. They say, oh, look, I don't quite like this, or could you add this feature? You're probably not going to get that level of engagement if it's just a normal sort of, inverted quotes customer. These are people that are really invested.
Yeah. That's awesome. I want to crowdfund something.
Yeah, I do too. Just the motivation, the accountability. I love it.
Well, we were one of the rare ones. I think typically it's been associated with like craft breweries and, those types of things. But it is definitely, I actually, if any of the listeners are interested, you should definitely, consider it if you are looking to raise some funding. And it was a fantastic experience for us. Fantastic. I couldn't give it high props. We, besides the money, that level of support and engagement and brand awareness was just incredible.
Michael, just on that, and maybe for the interest of listeners and not just myself, I imagine it's not just as simple as putting a page up on Virtual and writing a pitch and the money starts rolling into your bank account and then you just go and build a business with it. I'm pretty sure there'd be some, best practice stuff that happens in the background. Can you just fill people in maybe on some of the fundamental work that has to happen for that to be successful?
Yeah, it is. It's a very in-depth process. I think the first thing when I talk to people about it, it's the work involved is, I guess as a byproduct of the work involved, it's actually really just good stuff to do for your business.
Yep.
It forces you to think about your strategy and your proposition and your target market and, commercially what you want to do, your budgets. You have to prepare all of that. Obviously, if you want to, go and pitch the concept and raise money, people want to see that information. And we ended up producing a very in-depth booklet. I call it a booklet because it was quite long. It was probably 60 pages, right? And it had everything. And to this day, we still use a lot of that. So that almost became an asset for our business that we still reuse and we repurpose and we, adjusted based on, where we are today. That was number one. And then we had to create, a lot of content, video, blogs, information, social media. That took quite a bit. So we ended up having quite an extensive calendar of, communications that we wanted to produce during the fundraise and the campaign. The video itself, it's very polished. So that took quite a bit of time. We were interviewing different business owners, staff. We've got some staff in Sydney. They had to go up there. So, it's quite intense. And then, I think all of that, you're sort of hoping, you've got your fingers crossed and you're hoping that people get it and that you've been able to put forward a compelling rationale for investment, but you just never know. And I remember telling my wife, it sounds funny now in hindsight because we raised, at the time it was actually the record-breaking raise, $3 million.
Wow.
But just before the campaign went live, I said, I just don't know. Will people actually put their hand in their pocket? So I was super scared. I remember saying, I'd be happy if we could get 500,000, So, it was one of those things, I've never experienced before, but you hear about it or you might see it with other things. but genuinely, the campaign went live, people loved it, and it was almost a domino effect. So on the first day, we raised quite a bit of money, and then that became a media story in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that created a little bit of FOMO. So, the next day, a bunch more people jumped on, and then the next day, and then we got to our goal, very quickly. So, look, it is a lot of work, but I'd say it's all work that's really useful and reusable for any business.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And that whole thing about, you basically created a long-term strategic business plan on steroids because you had to for the funding, and then you get the bonus of having this awesome document that guides the business growth and setup. So it's fantastic.
And it's always great to go and look back at it too, the original, and see how much things have changed and whether some of your assumptions were right or wrong.
Yeah, cool. So how in line is reality with expectations? Just talking about that. So when you started this,
So we took longer to get to market than we expected. So we were planning on launching in late, I'm getting my years wrong, but 2021, and then we ended up launching in early 2022. So things like that emerged. I think they're sort of normal. And I think when you're building a product this complex, like with it, literally the only platform that does banking, accounting, and tax in one place, there was a lot of moving parts. And we're also dealing with different, partners and vendors and things like that. So that was definitely one change. I think the other thing that emerged was, there's now the concept of interest rates, which didn't exist, and inflation. So that has definitely started to permeate more into how we think about the information and what we do with that information for our customers. Versus I think during COVID, when we're thinking about the product, it was more about, presenting forecasts of the future. Whereas I think today a lot of people are just interested in the here and now a bit more. So I know that sounds a bit obvious, but it's how do you present that in a contextual way, in an actionable way, so that people can actually, take action today to benefit their business. Costs are rising, they're struggling with different things. That's something now that we're trying to build more into the product. I guess the other thing was one thing that did hold true, which was fantastic, was because of the wait list and also the crowdfunding, we had a pretty good idea about how many customers would use Thriday when we went live and what type of industries they would be in. And that's actually held true. So about 25% of our customers are tradies, which is fantastic. The next biggest group is creative, so people working as photographers or in design and media and things like that. So those sort of segments that we had identified early on have actually been the ones that have taken up the product, which is great.
Yeah, awesome.
Why Thriday? What's behind the name?
Well, there's the backstory to that one as well. We actually originally had two names that we really wanted to pick from. We had Thrive and Thriday. And Thriday was just a play on thrive every day. We actually picked the word thrive because we thought that it was obviously perhaps easier for people to pronounce and spell. I guess about a year into our journey, we'd actually secured the trademark for the spelling of thrive, THRIVE. And there was a large multinational business that entered Australia. So we decided, not that they reached out or anything, but we just decided that the way phonetically, you pronounce their business sounded like ours, and it was creating a bit of confusion. We decided to just go back to the other name that we had explored at the beginning. So we went with Thriday. We love it. It actually invites, I'm glad you asked, because it actually invites that question.
Yeah.
It invites people to look it up and ask what it is. And we're very proud that, that's actually our mission, is to help these businesses thrive every day.
I like that. All right. Tell us about the app. What does it do? How does it work?
It's an incredible app. I think with with Thriday, one thing we've recognised, I'm going to do my best to explain it, but one thing we recognise is seeing is believing it, because there is a lot to it. But I think the most simple way to explain it would be if you took a NAB business bank account and a debit card and took Xero and took Invoice to Go and smashed it all together into one system. And what we've done is with Thriday, you open a business bank account with us. It's fully government backed, up to 250,000 per account. You get a Visa debit card, and what happens is, as you spend money and earn money, so income's coming in from your invoices, or you're spending money on your debit card at Bunnings or wherever, we automatically do the bookkeeping, accounting, and tax. And I'll explain how we do that and why it's so unique. In real time, as you would see today with your own bank account, when a transaction occurs, it appears in your online banking, and that's what happens with Thriday. Because we're integrated with a bank, we actually can see a variety of extra information about that business that's not, I guess, available to the ordinary internet banking user. So when a transaction happens on a POS terminal, in the back end, the actual bank gets told, this is merchant X, this is the industry they're in, this is the location of that business, et cetera, et cetera. We actually are able to surface that information and use that informational data to automatically categorize that transaction. So if there's an Optus expense, we know it's a telecommunications transaction, and we automatically assign that to that chart of accounts. We also then know, because we do a check, we also know that Optus is registered for GST, so that as part of that transaction, there's a GST component that we sort of set aside for calculation purposes. So bookkeeping and automating that is our unique source. What that allows us to do is that in real time, there's no need for reconciliation. It's just done. There's no need to check if something's registered for GST or not. It's just done. And in real time, that means literally down to the transaction, we can tell you exactly what your tax position is today. And then we've built a forecasting solution to tell you where we expect it to be at the end of the financial year. So you do not have to worry about what your tax bill is. If you're a business that is profitable and you want to start to use some of your profit to buy some assets or things for them, to bring down your profit, you know exactly where you stand, and you don't have to lift a finger to do it. And the only way we can do that is through this integration, by pulling in the banking and debit card directly into the product. So that's number one. The second thing we do is we have a receipt scanning solution that's inbuilt into the product. There's no third-party app or something. You just press a button and you take a photo. You can forward a receipt. You can upload it. And what we do there is we also scan for the GST. So we use image recognition. We look at the amount. We look at the GST, and we pull that out. So that's the second thing we do. The third thing we do is we allow you to lodge your BAS directly to the ATO. So because we've got all this information there, we know what your income expenses are. We know what the chart of accounts is for each of those. We know what GST you've paid and what you've earned. We've built an integration into the ATO so you can lodge your BAS. You can do it automatically. There's a few questions we ask. There's a few things we get you to check, but then you can lodge it. Or we know that for some businesses, they love the peace of mind of having a human review the detail. We've actually partnered with an accounting firm called Pop Business, who we love. We think they're fantastic. You can actually get it referred to them for them to review for an extra fee. So they'll actually go through it with you, jump on a call if you have any questions or to check anything, and then it'll be lodged directly to the ATO. So that's number three. And I think number four is we do payments, which is really interesting. So what happens if I know some tradies may have heard of the profit first method.
Yep.
Thriday is perfect for profit first, because what you can do is you can set up to 9 sub-accounts. So you can have an account for tax, an account for salary, and an account for expenses, etc. You can create those in minutes online. You just press a few buttons, name the account what you want. But off the back of that, we have payments and transfers because we're an online bank in that sense. So when income comes in, you can simply distribute those funds into the nominated account that you want. We're now an official partner with Profit First Australia, which is great. So we're doing a lot to sort of educate our customers about how they can use our tool to set it up and make their life easier and hopefully that make their business more profitable. So, there's a few key things that we offer. I guess for tradies as well, who, a lot of tradies love our product. We've got unlimited invoicing and quoting. So you can set up discounts. We've got automated reminders. Because again, we're the bank, when the money hits your account, we instantly reconcile it and we update the status. So let's say I send you an invoice, you pay it, you don't have to check anything manually or confirm it's been paid. We see that the money's hit the account, update the status, that it's done, and that income's obviously reconciled to your accounts for tax time. So it's just very seamless. And, for us, our North Star or our mission is to eliminate financial admin. That is a crazy goal. It took me a while to be comfortable to tell people that was our goal. And what that means is we know that people hate the time they spend on this and that they would rather spend that 4, 5, 6 hours a week on their business or with their family, whatever. Yeah. And we want to eliminate it. And we're sort of 1% into the journey of where we want to be, but we're really excited about the feedback we've already received on the product, and we're growing really rapidly. There's a lot of really good word of mouth around the business already.
It's not often I'm blown away. Actually, it's never happened before that I've been blown away by the totality of a solution.
Yeah,
I think we sit in a privileged position to talk to lots of solution providers. And nobody yet has brought so much to the table in one solution, let alone something I can access on my phone.
The product's built for me.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I wanted.
Yep.
And I know, there's thousands of business owners like me out there that had this very challenge. And one of our tests is, would this make Michael happy? We're launching, for example, we don't have payroll today, but we're going to be working on payroll for the second half of the year. We've just launched automated accounts payable. So again, like receipts, you just forward your bills into Thriday. It appears in a table. It's all scanned. All the details are there. You just have to approve them for payment. This is, again, the benefit of having payments, banking, everything in one place. You don't have to download an ABA file or manually go into online banking to do it. It's just all part of the Thriday system. So, yeah.
It's the sort of thing you could get your 15-year-old kid to do for you.
Yeah.
Correct. That should be the next test. Can
a 15-year-old do it?
Exactly.
Because they can handle the tech. They understand the architecture of the system. They don't know anything about the finance necessarily and invoicing and all that, but they don't need to. They just need to know how to actually push it through the system.
Nick, we've had I know, Nick, you might be interested in this thing. We've had so many tradie wives say to us, I love this product. I just give my partner the debit card.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else for them to do. They just have to spend money and earn money. It's all taken care of.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. The simplicity is incredible.
That's awesome, mate. Love it. So anything else that our listeners should know about Thriday, Michael, before we ask you the magical question that I usually ask, and then share your details and wait for the flood of emails and web inquiries to come in from our listeners?
No, look, I think, if you're interested in Thriday, I would just search Thriday for tradies, jump on the site, reach out to us. We have, social channels. We have a call center. If you need some help getting set up or have any questions. But yeah, look, would love any of your listeners, if they reach out to us, we can give them a special discount as well.
Awesome. So one final question then, Michael. If you had 1,000 tradies in a room, what's one piece of advice you would leave them with?
Oh, good one. I'm going to be biased on this one, but I'd have to say use Thriday. But I think generally, I actually think we're actually educating the market that there is a better way. So I'd actually tell them there is a better way to manage your finances than how you've always done them. It doesn't have to be a pain. So that's actually what I would tell them.
Nice.
Love that. Yeah, that's a good one. Well, definitely go check it out, listeners. Thriday for tradies, THRIDAY. Go and Google that. And I'm pretty sure you'll find that online. It looks fantastic. Love your website too. It's beautifully simple and spells out nicely. And mate, love your backstory too. Great to learn about the people behind some of the solutions that we bring here to the podcast. So thanks for your time, Michael. I hope your wife enjoys the rest of her holiday, mate. And and we look forward to chatting to you more at Tradies in Business, I suspect.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.